Hi, Kristen.
Hey Janine, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, hanging in there. Did you ever notice that when you go to a store, like I don't shop at Target anymore, but when I used to shop at Target, and you
hmm
would go in and you would see like the models on the billboards inside the store, and there'd be a plus size model. Usually there's like one plus size model. Or if you're looking at a magazine, and there's like a bunch of fashion spreads, and then maybe there'll be one plus size model featured, or there'll be one story about plus size models, but it's usually like a one off. It's like the
hmm
exception rather than the
Like the
rule.
Highlander,
Yeah.
can only be one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's so interesting because that does not reflect reality. The reality is more people are in the plus size ranges than there are, or on the larger end of the scale, than there are very thin people. And yet, thin people are the ones who are the majority of the images that we see, which probably causes like a lot of like cognitive dissonance, like in us, and like unhealthy like expectations of like how we should look.
100%. And it's some kind of, it's that sort of aspirational look that brands like to push, of being like aspiring to be thin or, but the reality is if they just featured what people actually look like, they might they might sell more clothes because people would feel like they're for them.
hmm
But I that what I thought was really cool is this photographer, her name is Lydia Hudgens. She is sort of changing that representation and creating a book that is 100% plus models, and it's the first of its kind. So cover to cover, it's featuring all plus size models. And she's herself been a plus size model. And so she has a very unique eye. And so I'm super excited for her book and to talk to her.
Yeah. I've been following her career for a while now, so this will be really interesting to have the conversation with how she came up with this concept. And so let's go talk to her.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Hi, welcome to the Closet Philosophy Podcast. This is Janine. I'm a personal stylist.
And this is Kristen. I'm a fashion writer, and we're here to uncover the ways that your personal style is so much more than just clothes.
Whether you realize it or not, what you wear touches on science, psychology, culture, politics, and so much more.
Lydia Hudgens is a Brooklyn-based photographer with a passion for highlighting the strengths and personalities of her subjects. She has focused on plus-size fashion in her commercial and editorial work and is dedicated to celebrating the beauty of diverse bodies. Hudgens has also modeled for Universal Standard, Google, It Cosmetics, and others. In 2021, she launched a monthly modeling class in her Brooklyn studio, specializing in fluid movement and teaching models confidence in posing. Hudgens has been featured in Vogue, Teen Vogue, InStyle Magazine, Glamour, and more. Her clients have included Anthropologie, Madewell, Reformation, Rent the Runway, and many more. Her book, plus Expanding the Frame, will be available next week on September 9th and features exclusively plus size models, the first of its kind. Lydia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm so glad to see you again. Yeah, so your book will be out next week, which is super exciting. You must be excited. We'd love to hear how you conceived of the book and what will be in it.
Conceived of it. Well, so I was working at an agency in 2023 and actually had just decided to leave and part ways with the agency. And Smith Street Books, which is a publisher based in Australia, actually reached out to me. And so they initially wanted to do all street style, which is interesting. We were kind of briefly talking about that before we started recording, but I got my start working strictly mostly on the street, doing a lot of street style, a lot of bloggers at that time. So I kind of like I made the decision to kind of switch gears with the book and do something exclusively indoors because it's something I've been kind of like changing gears with my own personal work. I don't really shoot bloggers anymore either. So I wanted to make sure that I was kind of like setting a tone on like the new part of my career, you know what I mean? And then what was the second part of the question? I'm so sorry.
How you came up with the idea of the
Okay.
book.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of approached me about it and they were like, well, this is like the first plus size book ever. And there has been like similar ones specifically around street style. I think there was a UK blogger editor that did one that was like mostly just like street style photos, which is kind of why I wanted to pivot as well. Wanted to make sure that it was like different enough where I didn't feel like it was repeating itself. And yeah, I just kind of like I don't know, as I continued working on it, I got more and more ideas of what I wanted to do. I did a couple different articles and features on, plus size industry leaders. Nicolette Mason's in the book, Kelly Augustine's in the book, Kelly Brown's in the book, Jessica Torres, and Emma Zach, who are like all big names, especially Nicolette Mason. I feel like her, Kelly Brown, Kelly Augustine were kind of like the leaders, especially in the beginning stages of it influencing and just like, they worked very closely hand in hand with a bunch of brands. So yeah, it kind of just felt very like organic the way we started like working on it and developing it from there. So
That's really cool. And so you've worked with all these names that have come up as plus models, and I'm wondering if you are you finding that the fashion world is increasingly accepting of larger bodies, or are you noticing, I mean, there's been this trend towards like skinny talk and with the introduction of GLP-1 drugs and that whole trend that's happening. I'm wondering if you're what you're seeing as far as just the fashion world at large accepting or not or going in the opposite direction.
it's definitely has kind of backslid a little bit. I think we had a rise in plus size diversity and inclusivity. We saw a lot of brands like Good American, Skims, I feel like they were really like pivotal in kind of helping to push that needle forward with actually seeing sizes in like e-commerce and stuff. I think initially, like before the pandemic, I think plus sizes was really like becoming a trending topic. I think there was a lot of diversity happening during the pandemic and after the pandemic. It's definitely taken a dip. I feel like more and more brands, there's been so many smaller brands that have just shuttered completely or stepped back on having plus altogether. Or, it's like Old Navy used to have up to size 40, I think, in store. And they're now, I don't think they even carry plus sizes in
Oh,
store,
What?
which was
wow.
like, yeah, and they made a huge campaign when they first launched this and like
Yeah.
a huge talking point. So like them not to even carry plus sizes in store after making that was kind of like crazy to me. And then I also think that like it's just been interesting again with like the Ozempic and the GLP-1s. Like I do think it's having an effect because people are losing weight and the people that had the money to purchase plus size clothes before are now using that income to take the drug. And so a lot of those people are buying elsewhere because they can afford it now. You know what I mean? So like a lot of these plus brands are just like shuttering, or brands that are like more size inclusive that started at size 0 and go upwards, they're kind of pulling back and scaling back on their sizes altogether. Yeah, it's definitely been like interesting space. Like even shooting the book, I feel like I got a lot of feedback from models that were just like, this is the first time I've been on set in like a couple of months. Whereas
Oh.
before they were working like multiple times a month doing huge campaigns, things like that. So yeah,
Mm.
definitely
Do,
interesting time.
do you think that it's the like you mentioned post-pandemic, it has shifted. Do you think there's something to do with the end of the pandemic, or do you feel that it's like the rise of conservatism, or probably a combination of all these things?
I definitely think it has a combination because I do think that like the aesthetic thing is starting to like people are leaning into aesthetics a lot more. And I do feel like that's a very like, you know, conservative viewpoint, especially like it's like one body type is like preferable. Specifically, I mean, I think we think of like curvy body as especially like growing up, I was always, I always thought of curvy bodies typically as women of color or Black women. And so, like, now that we're kind of leaning the other direction, it does feel like inherently slightly racist. So, it just like, it's a very interesting time, I think, but also I do think it has something to do with like just economics in general. I think people are, I don't know, there's so many things that I think are happening. Also AI, the rise of AI is happening. There's it's I don't know. It's hard to pivot like pinpoint like one specific reason. I do think that it did have a shift after the pandemic, but I'm not sure like when and where that happened. I just know that it started happening, you know what I mean? So, and I do think a lot of us did put on weight during the pandemic. We weren't moving as much, we weren't going outside as much. So I think that like this like internal thing of people being like more bodily acceptable or like accepting their bodies because they kind of felt like they had to. And now that they're outside, they kind of feel like, well, I have a choice not to. Why wouldn't I?
Mm.
Yeah, the GLP-1s also play into that choice too, right?
Yeah.
Our previous guest said was talking about this, hasn't published yet, but
Chrissy King.
Chrissy King.
Okay.
Yeah. And she mentioned that, women who lived in a bigger body just accepted it because they really didn't feel like they had a choice. And
Yeah.
so they were celebrating, their size and promoting representation. But then when there was a choice to take these GLP-1s, there was a choice to change it. Some of them did go ahead and do that. And so that kind of removed some of that representation. I don't know if you're noticing anything like that.
Oh, huge, like a ton of people. I mean, I've been noticing a lot of people shifting gears, especially like big plus size influencers. Don't really choose not to name names, but I do find that there's like a ton of plus size influencers that made, a huge amount of their audience flock to them because they were very body positive and now they are on GLP-1s. They're switching gears entirely and now like promoting a bunch of like fitness and like
Mm.
it's definitely interesting that it's definitely gone that route. And I do think some of the fact was like people felt like they were like, well, I have no other choice. Like I've tried everything else and my body's this way. So I'm just gonna like lean into this. This is my content now, regardless of whether or not they truly felt comfortable in their bodies or that positive. I mean, I personally like do understand that like body neutrality is a thing, but it's like it is interesting to see this like dynamic shift, you know?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, do you sense that some people might feel betrayed by?
Definitely a little bit of that. I mean, I personally am of the opinion that like I think that everyone should have body autonomy and like, if you choose if you have the money to take it and you're doing it safely and correctly and with doctor supervision, like I think sure, do whatever you want. As someone that has personally gone because I struggled with an ED years ago, actually, when I lived in like San Francisco. And like, I do feel like there was like a large part of that, like coming up from like a fitness background that like, to me, I think there's this idea of health, and then people just automatically assume that if you're skinny, you're healthy. When I was at my thinnest, I was the most unhealthy I ever was. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's like I have no personal judgment against it because I do think a lot of that has some internal work that people need to do. But I do understand that the community at large has a tendency to kind of look negatively on people that kind of make dollars from them. Like if you were, your entire audience was plus size people and then you started losing weight and started selling like fitness, it's like I can see where your audience would be like, well, what is this? But
Hmm.
you can follow also, so
Mm.
I don't know. I have had multiple conversations with other people about this because like I do believe that people should be able to do what they want with their bodies. I think when you start pushing that narrative on other people is when it becomes an issue.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I can see like where the fine line would be. It's like, because I, have gone through like weight loss journeys in both directions or weight gain, weight loss fluctuations throughout my life, and like this last time it was like after the pandemic and I felt like it was really different because I had just read that book, Burnout by Emily Nagoski. I don't know if you know that book, but they talked about like using exercise as a way to like regulate your nervous system and so I started thinking about exercise as a way to take care of myself and nurture myself for my mental health rather
Yeah.
than attaching it to the shape of my body and like that like shifted like almost everything. And so, and that's like me, that may or may not be like the thing for other people, but for me, like coming in touch with like my own like internalized fat phobia, like it shifted just my general like outlook like on myself and then also like the world around me and but it's still like fat phobia is like really insidious and like it'll get you like you close the door, it comes through the window, and then it close the window, it comes through the chimney. Yeah, so I just would really love to hear like why like you believe representation of like plus size models is so important.
I mean, I definitely, I just turned 42, and it's like I think that if I had seen those kind of representation at a younger age, I probably wouldn't have struggled as much as I did when I was younger. I mean, I was on Weight Watchers, I was on nutrition plans, I did Jenny Craig as a young age. Like I was constantly at battle with my weight when I was a kid because my parents believed that was I like there's no way I could have a curvy body. And so like I think that if I had had that representation, if my parents had seen that representation, maybe their opinion would have been different. You know what I mean? And so I think that like that representation also matters from like a multi-tier thing because I'm like I think like kids younger people need to see that representation so that they know when they look at someone that looks like them that it's not their body is wrong, you know? And I think that like I, as a younger child, I always believed my body was wrong because I didn't fit like what everyone else looked like, you know? And I think having that representation is huge. But I also think it's like, I don't know, I feel like model wise too, it's like personally as a plus size person, I hate going on an e-com site and not seeing a model that looks like me because I have no idea what I'm going to get.
Mm,
I mean, I don't know how it's going to fit. I don't even know like a vibe of how it's going to fit. I mean, I know a lot of plus size models tend to look the same in terms of body type,
mhm,
but they still like are a better sense of what it would look like than like a size 2 or 4. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So,
Definitely.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
mhm,
I mean, I feel the same way, and I mean, I'm like a traditional like size large pretty much right now. Like I'm not a plus size, but even from my perspective, when I go to a site and I'm looking at the clothes, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm gonna look like in these clothes because they're all like size 0 or 2. So I can imagine how frustrating it would be for like a plus size person.
know.
It's like
Which is
exponential.
it was so great, like Skims, Good American, Universal Standard, which I don't believe they're even doing it anymore. There was a thing where you could see it in your size. And that was so amazing because I feel like there was a size large, there was a size 2X, there was a size, usually it was like small to medium, and then like the large was its own. But even then, you can kind of get a sense like, oh, that's a similar body type to mine. I think that's
Yeah.
huge. And it's like, it has such a buying power. I mean, I'm so like, I get nervous about purchasing something if I have no idea. And I personally can't go into store, really. There's really not that much that's even accessible to me as a plus size person. So I have to buy online, but you're not giving me any, I have no idea what things are going to look like because you're not like giving me that option, you know?
Yeah,
mhm,
and I just feel like we've been saying this for so long. Like it is a business argument to make clothes that fit people, that fit the majority
Yeah.
of the people in the world. So why not make them? I mean, is it just the societal pressure? I don't understand what businesses are doing if they're not gonna create clothes and market the clothes, advertise the clothes
Yeah.
to fit the people who are gonna fit, to appeal to the people who they're actually gonna fit. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's very interesting too because I've seen this argument. Like Ann Taylor, I think, was doing plus sizes for a bit, and then they scaled back and they were like, "Well, no one purchased anything." And I'm like, "Where was the marketing? Like, I didn't even really know that you carried plus. Like, there's so
mhm,
many brands that you would click on and be like, "Oh, they have extended sizes." Like, I didn't know. And then when the sizes fail, I'm like, they blame the plus size people for not buying it, but I'm like, you did nothing to market it appropriately.
And it
mhm,
seems like the fear there might be like a pushback if like traditionally sized people like who are already fans of, and was it Ann Taylor, did you say?
Yeah.
If they see that, they'll be like, "Oh, this a plus size brand now?" Or they'll be somehow turned off by the marketing. So is it like this fear of like,
I I do think it's a bit of like it's a fear, but also like they're still trying to like lean into aesthetics. And like for them, it's more aspirational to have thinner models on their website than have a
right?
plus size model. And when you add a plus size person, it automatically watered down your brand. And like, I don't know. I mean, and obviously there's beautiful plus size models. Like I know many, and many of them are featured in my book, but it's like I do think there's definitely the amount of times I've heard aspirational plus size is very interesting to me
Oh, what
because
is that?
it's like a plus size that is typically not like there's not that much cellulite. The bodies are like larger but firm. It's
Mhm.
it's it's definitely interesting. I mean, I've heard it many times from brands and it's just I'm like I get what their perspective is, but I'm just like and I have heard from multiple people that have worked on the brand side too that like plus size people say they want to see plus size representation in terms of larger models, but then when they feature the larger models, the product doesn't sell as well. So I do think inherently there's a little bit of like fat phobia even from plus size people.
Like internalized?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like sometimes like I get comments on my Instagram page like, "Oh, can you style this for a plus size person or can you do this styling trick for a plus size person?" I'm like, there are so many plus size creators.
Yeah.
Like and I say like, there's a lot of plus size creators who do things similar to this, like, and they're like, "Oh, well, which ones?" And I'm just like, so you're not following them? Like I don't know. To me, it just seems like, and I see like a lot of times like plus size creators have a struggle a lot more than somebody in a smaller body, and I see that even within like the plus size community, like and I adore my plus size followers, like I do, like I love and I really. But like sometimes when that comes up and it's like they're not following plus size creators, and I have to
Yeah.
say like, well, why not?
Yeah. What about them is not aspirational to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And that idea of aspirational plus size also kind of reminds me of a woman who we had on. I've written about her and we've had her on the podcast. Her name's Alicia Johnson, and she is a plus size mature model. And she's apparently, like, according to her and according to what I could find, I did a little research into it, that she's the only plus and mature model who's signed to a major agency, like Ford or Elite or one of those.
Do you know how old she is?
She's in the
She's like
60s.
62 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I will say I can't off the top of my head because I did consider shooting some for my book. I really don't think there's that many people that are over a size, I mean, over 40 that I know of offhand. And if they are, they're like working very, very commercially. They're doing like pharma, they're doing like commercials like that, liquor ads, stuff like that, but not in anywhere in like a fashion space.
Yeah, and she's been outspoken about talking about the idea that it's okay to be plus size if you're in a younger body, but being plus size and in an older body is kind of looked at as like, oh, you let yourself go, or like, a lot of the older models who you see with blonde, I mean with gray hair, who are older are thin.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely because I was modeling for a bit, and I think part of my struggle when I was modeling is I have a multi-tier thing because I'm also tattooed, but I'm plus size, I'm gray, and I have tattoos. So I think that like if you cut the plus size out of that equation, I probably would have continued to work.
Mm,
Like
Mm.
if I was a thin gray person with tattoos, I probably would have gotten like edgy bookings, you know what I mean? Like that. But
Mhm.
I feel like because I was plus size, it also like took me out of the equation. Like I talked to a couple casting directors and they were like, yeah, it's like too many things.
Oh,
yeah, like each one of those things makes you more and more of a
Yeah.
niche. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting. It kind of is like this whole, the body is not a apology, how she talks about like the poodle analogy or something like that. Like making yourself think that you want to be like this like thin, blonde, young person is like that is
Yeah.
a standard of beauty. And like comparing yourself to it's like comparing yourself to a poodle.
Yeah.
Well, pugs are adorable, but if you compare their beauty to like a poodle, they're not going to measure up, right? And so when you say like, like plus age and then tattoos and piercings, it's like it's kind of like other steps away from like
Yeah.
that quote unquote like beauty standard.
I mean, the only real ones I ever got, I got a lot of like pride campaigns like pitched to me because I feel like they automatically assume that if you're tattooed, you are queer. At least at that point that are like heavily tattooed, because I think even now it's like with tattoos, most models have a tendency to get like the small like patchwork pieces, but I'm like pretty heavily tattooed.
Right.
Yeah.
So which I also understood. Like to me, I wasn't really like put out that much because I kind of made a conscious decision to continue getting tattoos. If I really wanted to pursue modeling, also just like from my perspective as someone that works so much in the industry, it's like the tattoo can be an issue because it also becomes like a copyright issue. There's way more things that go
Oh,
into it than
huh.
just like that person has tattoos. It's like I did an ad for Google and like I had to like write, get my tattoo artist to like sign a model release for
Oh
them.
my
So
God.
yeah, there's a lot more that goes into it, which is why I wasn't like super upset about it. Yes, I wouldn't mind doing it, but at the same time, it's like, I do think it's like an interesting thing though. Like if you're plus size with like no tattoos and gray hair, like why aren't you getting the same opportunities as like the thinner gray hair models? Because they are like when I worked at the agency, I feel like those were the models that were honestly working the most. Like they
Mm,
got so much work if you were gray.
mm.
Oh,
Well,
really?
you also went gray. Like I think I've always remembered you had like
Yeah.
gray hair. Like you had gray hair when you were younger.
Yeah, I started going gray when I was 16.
Oh yeah.
And
Whoa.
my brother's 40 and he's also like completely salt and pepper. So it's like just runs in my family. I mean, I've gone quite a bit grayer in the past like 5 years, obviously, but because I feel like this area was not as, white. I also shaved my head for years and like, so I didn't even know what my hair looked like. I was like, when I
Yeah,
started growing out,
I
I was
remember
like,
you with this
oh, I'm
full
really
like
gray.
shaved
Yeah,
side, like the
like
long, yeah.
I had like the Skrillex haircut, so it was like one completely shaved side, but I swear I had that haircut before Skrillex became a thing. But I had like one shaved head, one shaved side, and then one long
Yeah, I remember
side.
that.
So yeah,
Um,
but then I feel like I decided to pivot a little bit because I was like with modeling, it wasn't a thing.
Mm,
Like you had to
hmm.
have more of a traditional haircut, obviously. So yeah.
interesting.
I want
Yeah.
I want to hear about your posing class. So like okay, so I have a community and there is a lot of people like with all body sizes, from like 4X to like 0. So I'm mostly on the plus size, so I would say in my community. And one of the things that they really struggle with is like because part of the community is like taking daily outfit photos. So you get to like
Yeah.
have a record and kind of have like a get feedback. And there's like lots of reasons why taking photos of your outfits is good for your
Sure.
style. But a lot of people come up with like body issues and when they see themselves in photos and they say like, oh, like I wore like oversized with oversized and I felt like I was massive. And I was like, well, it's more like how your like
It's
how like your
definitely
pose. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like how you're posing because I think proportionally, like I can wear something extremely oversized, but it's the way you're like featuring yourself in the frame. Like if you stand super straight up and down, you're going to appear larger versus if you kind of like take a step out with one leg and you're shooting slightly at an upward angle in my preference always makes you look slightly longer. That'll help like proportion you out a little bit more. I find that if you're like leaning down at all, it'll make your body in the top make you look a little larger, which is always why I kind of tend to like lean back a touch. Not crazy, you're not doing this, but like just like
Mhm.
a tiny shift on a back hip. But yeah, I feel like that's that was like a very specific thing. But yeah, I started doing my posing classes honestly because, I shot bloggers for so long. So I feel like I got really good at kind of working with real people. And just kind of like, because I mean, at the end, when I started shooting bloggers, it was just people that wanted to take outfit photos. They weren't models. They were just people that were trying to document what they wore. And so a lot of them felt very uncomfortable in front of the camera. So just getting people comfortable, getting them even like in the routine of like maybe one or two poses where they felt comfortable, I think kind of helped lead over into this. But then when I started working more with brands and they were loving the idea of just like the real person sort of, I don't know, flexibility of how I could work with people.
Mhm.
I started getting more and more models sent to me, and that's when I started pushing that a little bit more. I will admit that I had also like there was one person that was teaching modeling classes at the time, and I felt like it was at such a like price point that it wasn't accessible to people, and I don't think it really taught anything that was helpful. There's like a bunch of classes that are very similar to that, but I
Mhm.
felt like it was very like leaning more towards editorial, which is very scary for someone that's just getting into photography or just wants to look good in front of the camera. And so I definitely like really my idea, the posing classes was specifically very commercial, just making people feel a little bit more comfortable, getting the basics down, knowing what to do with their hands, knowing what to do with just like positioning their bodies in a small way. It wasn't like huge, crazy movements, which I think has been really helpful. And like, I work with a lot of new models that are just like have no idea what they're doing. And I think coming to me, I just give them like a baseline of what to do. And yeah, I've been doing it for like feel like 3 or 4 years now, and I've only had good feedback on them. So I still teach one, usually like one every other month or one once a month. It kind of depends. Like this month, I'm not doing one just because of the book and everything. I just felt like I needed like a little mini break from them. They can be a lot. It's
Mhm.
like a lot of mental baggage to take on sometimes
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because like I'm very comfortable with working with people, obviously, but I do think a lot of people come with very negative self-images, and that can be a lot to handle, like emotionally, because I do tend to
Yeah.
like, turn into a therapist sometimes. So
Yeah.
I can totally imagine that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I also think that like the posing is not really necessarily about looking larger or smaller or longer or short. Like where like all of it, I think is more about like looking more dynamic and
yeah,
natural and more
for
like
sure.
fluid in the moment. Where I think that where a lot of people feel like they don't look good in pictures is because they're all like locked up and like
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying about like
yeah,
this straight up and down pose, which people
yeah.
tend to do. There's nothing dynamic about that. It looks very blocky and you're not taking up any space. You're not creating shape. And I think as soon as you start like kind of shifting your body, creating shape, playing with your arms, doing things like that, you create more dynamic interest in the photo, which I really lean and harp on like the idea of perspective too, because the more like you're like being aware of the camera, even if it's just your cell phone, I think is really helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think once people can kind of understand that, I feel like they kind of get out of their bodies a little bit in terms of how they're like visually thinking and talking about their body, because a lot of it is just like how you carry yourself too. I feel like I've gotten a lot of negative self-talk, obviously, but I'm just like, but it's the way you're standing. Like all you have to do is like really like be conscious of your shoulders, conscious of what your body is doing, being intentional and just like there in the moment. And I think some people just get so insecure and like they like clam up. And that's
Mhm.
obviously not going to leave you feeling very confident on camera either. So,
hmm Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're not feeling confident. And so
yeah.
and the camera picks up on that. And so this is like more like learning how I know I feel like po learning how to pose in photos helps you to learn how to feel more comfortable in your body. Like just because like
Yeah.
it's like you get to see yourself in the way that other people see you. And
Which is
so
also interesting too, because I think some people are so not used to seeing the person that other people see. They're used to what their phone sees. And so think sometimes get some people would like, that's not what I look like. And I'm like, that's what you're not used to seeing. That doesn't mean that's not what you look like. you
Mm.
know, which is also an interesting thing. I think like the whole cell phone thing, the filter thing. I think there's so many people, the amount of times I've given people their photos and then I look back on their Instagram and they've like put an AI filter over it and
Oh,
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah,
God.
I know I hear you about like I the last time I had my photos taken like by like with a DSLR, I was like, oh, my skin is like that. And then she's
I
like,
know.
is
Well,
that
when
what people
we,
see? And then yeah,
yeah.
and then she's like, because I have pores and like, and she's like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God,
like
pores.
pores. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's everybody has pores.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but is this like why you like to take photos with film? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was taking a lot, I was doing a lot more film, to be honest. I kind of don't do it as much anymore just because financially it's pretty expensive.
Oh.
I actually had to sell my main film camera earlier this year just because I needed the money. I mean, this book was like crazy expensive to produce. So
Mm.
I kind of went deep into debt on that. But my initial thought is that I wanted to shoot all film. And then I realized quickly that that was not feasible. But I do agree. Like, I think film is nice because there is like a rawness, a realness to it where you kind of can't hide behind it. Although I will say that like film is easily retouchable as well. So like I think people are like, oh, you can't retouch film. I'm like, actually it's kind of easier because the grain pattern tends to like it's gonna look slightly, I don't know. I feel like retouching has gone such a huge step now where you probably wouldn't even tell that it's been retouched. But I think when I first started, I definitely thought like film felt more raw and real, you know. And I do miss it. And occasionally I will shoot a roll here or there, but it's just so expensive now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Because you have
it's
to buy the film and then you have to pay to get it developed. And is the retouching
why
like,
I outsource retouching, but honestly, I have like, I think, you know, I use like a bunch of retouchers, so it really kind of depends. Like I said, the retouching's not as difficult on film, in my opinion. I think you
uh-huh.
have to find someone that's good with like matching the film structure, the grain structure, but it's not really that difficult. I mean, it is expensive. Also, it's slower, and a lot of models are not comfortable moving that quickly. They or that slow. They want
Mm,
the shots immediately. They want to be able to immediately see the proofs, things like that. I think people just in general don't really want to wait that long. So I used to do it a little bit more here or there. I've shot a couple brands on film, but I think it's just like for the most part, most people are just not asking for it anymore. So,
Mm.
and
mm.
I was pre-book, I did a lot of personal work that was all film, but that's when I had more disposable income. So
So what are the things that need to come together for to make a really great shot? Like, because I imagine that you had tons of shots of all these different models who you included in your book. So like what are the elements that all need to kind of come together to be that like one shot that's the one that you use?
I mean, I guess it feels like it's very structured. Again, I'm like a Virgo, so I'm very like anal about things, but it's usually just like lighting, the makeup, the hair, the outfit, the background, the model, obviously. Like I feel like all of those things are just I come from again, I come from a very brand perspective. I do feel like I'm pretty commercial with the way I shoot. So I think it's from a production level. That's kind of how I went in to every shot. And then just I do think there's a level of intimacy with the models as well. Everyone that's in this book, I've either shot before. I think there was only one model I had never shot before, but I really liked her look. I found her on Instagram and she was lovely. Didn't realize that she was under 18 when I shot her, but her mom was on set with her. But yeah, for the most part, I feel like everyone was really like I knew them and I'd worked with them closely before. And I do think that intimacy really helps because there's a feeling of just comfort, but also trust. And I think the model is really everyone that did this book didn't like they didn't do it to get paid. They did it because they were excited about it. Obviously, they got a copy of the book and so they're just excited and like wanted to support what it was about. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I have this theory that like when people take a photo, the photo is like that's how the person who took the photo sees you. And
I
so,
would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. I think so many people are used to seeing themselves like on a cell phone where they can kind of control every single aspect of what
Mm.
it looks like. But obviously, the person behind the camera is going to have a very specific idea of how they want you to look as well, because obviously, at the end of the day, it's like my viewpoint could change depending on how I'm shooting you. But I do think that, like, in general, I have a tendency to want to make people look really strong. And yeah, I guess strong and confident is always the biggest thing with me. I don't like when people feel like they're just like shrinking into themselves. But I definitely would agree with that. I do think that like that's why I've gotten kickback sometimes where people are like, "That's not what I look like." I'm like, "That is what you look like," at least through my gaze, you know?
mhm. Yeah, which I mean, I think it's really beautiful. Like, and that's how people, your photos are really beautiful. So you must have like this thing where you just really have this talent for seeing the beauty in people.
I mean, I do work with a ton of beautiful models, so I to me it feels like very easy because I'm given amazing subjects, but has been obviously people that step on set that are like a little nervous and not really sure what they're doing and then walk away feeling really confident and happy with what they got. More often than not, I would say that's usually the after effect, which always makes me happy. And it's always I don't know. I do think like in the amount of years I've been shooting, I've definitely feel like I've just gotten better about trying to kind of see what I feel like the people need to see as well, you know, in themselves and kind of trying to push that out of them. Because I do think at the end of the day, it's like I want to make sure that you feel comfortable within yourself while you're doing the photos too. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that idea of like helping people see a beauty that you see in them that they might not see in themselves. I think that is like an amazing thing for a photographer to offer a model.
I mean, I think it's important, especially since like I do think like women in general or just women presenting, it's like we have a tendency to be kind of like continuously like pushed down and belittled by society and our peers. And like, I don't know, I just, especially now, it's like I feel like you go on Instagram or TikTok and there's just like so much negativity, comments, things like that. It's like, it's nice to at least like in the moment feel like really good, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 So I would love for you to speak to like the message of your book that's coming out. Like, what is a message that when somebody comes and sees your book, what is a message that you want them to walk away with?
I would say the biggest thing that I've heard that people have said that it's just amazing to see people that look like them all in one space. And I do think that's like the biggest thing. I think I just want people to like feel recognized. And I think like to me, especially like even look if you pick up a Vogue, you pick up like even like smaller ones, you rarely see a plus size model. And so like it was my love letter to plus size people to just like be able to pick up a book and like have it be completely plus size does not happen. It's not a thing. And so like being able to give people that opportunity, that experience to pick up something they know is for them was like the biggest part of it for me, just because there's so few spaces that are inclusively or like exclusively plus size. And that's, you know, an experience that we rarely get to have.
Mm,
Yeah, that's so true. If you, anytime there's a plus size person featured, it's usually there's like one of them, or it's the
Yeah.
exception. It's not the rule.
Or it's
So,
like a feature that's like in a sea of other thinner models, you know, it's like
exactly.
it feels a little like what's the word?
Tokenish or something like that.
Tokenish.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just they're using the movement, which is what I felt a lot about body positivity in the beginning. Because I
mm,
felt like they were like doing these shoots surrounding plus size models, but a lot of it just felt like it was like, well, this is like a big trend right now, so I guess we should jump on it. But
Right.
it didn't feel like it was like really true to the nature of the publishing, you know, where it was being published, or, you know,
mhm.
there has been a few that I do feel like did a really good job with that, but I do think it definitely did feel like sort of like it didn't feel genuine a lot of the time, you know? So
I think it's really interesting. One thing that I want to say to people, like, is like when they see people like these like campaigns with all the thin models and then they have like that one plus size model, they get the feeling that like being plus size is an anomaly.
Yeah.
And but the reality is that 73% of adults in the United States are like overweight and
Yeah.
obese. And or like, I don't like that word. Like, what's another word? Like in a larger body.
Well, I
Um,
mean, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I medically obese, but I think obese also is like an interesting topic as well. Because if you look at like the BMI metric too, they were like, feel like that's very out of date and as
Yeah.
well. So like even the idea of obese, like I forget who was that? She was a big athlete, not big physically, but she was like I forget what her name. She did like Dancing with the Stars. Anyway, she was a rugby player. I forget what her
Oh,
name is.
Alona,
Yeah,
Iona or Iona.
yeah. People were saying that
She's
she's
amazing.
technically obese, and I'm like,
Yeah.
she's one of the strongest women
Mhm.
athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Like, if she's obese, then I think we maybe need to like take a look at what that word potentially means. But
And redefine
exactly,
that. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, the same thing we just had this conversation about Serena Williams, like her coach, when she was at the top of her game, her coach was
yeah,
telling her that she needs to lose weight.
And
Why? I'm winning every championship. Like, why
yeah,
do I need to lose weight? Because you
yeah.
don't like the way I look? Like,
That's so interesting too, the fact that she like did lose weight and got on a GLP-1, now looks very thin and not super healthy in my opinion.
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, I don't want to make judgment calls on people's bodies, but considering what she used to look like and what she looks like now, I'm like, she looked much more healthy before, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And for the record, I never thought that she needed to do anything different with her body than what she
yeah.
was doing before. Like I never thought like, oh, like I never think that about anybody, but like that, I mean, she's definitely somebody that never even like that was not even ever a thought.
I'm like, I look at like one of the biggest athletes in the world. Why would I automatically assume, well, there's a little heavy, maybe they should lose weight? I'm like,
I know,
I know
right?
she's like smashing competitions. Why would
yeah,
that be your thought?
Yeah, that it just is like ridiculous. But the thing is that and what's really cool about your book is that it takes that representation and creates a space that really truly exists that is
yeah.
not being acknowledged.
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely shrinking metaphorically and physically right now, because I
Mm.
do think a lot of people that are able to afford it are getting on GLP-1s. So I do think the demographic is shifting, but I also think it's still a large like percentage of our population is plus size. And so I don't know. It's an interesting thought to me that I'm like even thinking about the fact that that number is shrinking physically. But I do think it's those people are not being represented and they're still not getting that representation. And now it's even getting worse, but they're still continuing to be plus size. I mean, I personally have been in spaces lately where I'm like, I'll show up and I exist in a plus size body. And I'm like, I wonder if those people are thinking, wow, she must not be able to afford Ozempic, which is
Oh,
a
Mm.
whole different thought process. And I'm just like, maybe people are choosing not to take it because they don't hate themselves, or
yeah.
they feel
Yeah.
comfortable in their bodies and they're healthy in their bodies as is. It's just like a whole, I don't know.
It adds a whole other wrinkle to the
For
conversation
sure.
and
And
the
it comes about
societal.
economics too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
adds that
And
layer of class and so and what like a wealthy person looks like and so and then there's like the intersection of class and race and
Yeah.
sex and all of those kinds of things it now it's becoming even more pronounced because of
Yeah.
these drugs that are becoming available so
Yeah.
yeah that's super complex I mean the whole thing is so systemic and I think that the purpose of like these like podcasts is to kind of help people recognize that it's like your conversation with about yourself, about your body may not be about you having a conversation with your body. It may have impact, it may be impacted by
Yeah.
things like
Outside factors.
culture, the
Yeah.
systemic issues, and all of that kind of seeping in, and you're being affected by that. And so to acknowledge that is to say like okay I see that now and so when these thoughts start to creep into my mind it's like okay I can question that
Yeah, it can be a deeper conversation with yourself maybe your therapist. Like there's so many factors that go into it. I think some people just like immediately like jump the gun and immediately jump in, but don't do the inner self-care that it takes. Because I mean, I've also heard many people that have lost a bunch of weight and then they're internally struggling because they're still where they were mentally when they were
Right.
bigger. They haven't been able to accept themselves. And I don't know, it becomes like a whole different level. I mean, and even as someone that did lose a large amount of weight when I was younger and then gained it back, I do think like even then I struggled because I was dealing with so much internal, damage to myself and my self-esteem. And I think I only gained that back as when I started gaining more weight because I think I started becoming a little more accepting and also working with bloggers that were larger, working with Kelly Brown, Gabby Fresh, Nicolette Mason. Like, I feel like those people helped me like really accept who I was. But I'm like, it's because I had that representation around me. So if you're like dealing with all these outside sources and then the representation is dwindling at the same time, that's when it starts to become worrisome because I'm just like, how can you turn that off if all you're seeing is the same thing?
Mhm. Yeah. It's like, where is that kind of reality check? And so
Yeah.
that's desperately needed.
And just like one little thing to add onto that, like a good reality check for me was Universal Standard because
Yeah.
their sizing, from what I understand, represents the reality of I don't maybe just in the United States, but the reality of sizes that exist in the United States.
I think it's like
So
0 to
to
40.
like
Yeah.
yeah, but so like I'm usually a large, like I was saying, and like if I went to I don't know J. Crew, I don't know any like a random brand, I would usually be a large. But at Universal Standard, I measured myself because I was like I have no idea what size I am in this brand,
Yeah.
and I was like
I,
between an extra small and a small
yeah.
in Universal Standard. So that I appreciate that they did this sizing scheme that supposedly more accurately represents,
Yeah, it
you know.
definitely like it brings it down a little bit and like makes you because I think I'm universal, I'm like a medium large. And so in the grand scheme of like plus size people, I'm still very small. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like I do think that like even making a note on that. I mean, even like for me, it was like besides Universal, is like even like for me deciding on the name of the book, I was kind of like tiptoeing. I thought about calling it a more subversive, like kind of aggressive name. I thought about doing the idea of fat was my initial thought process, but then because I know something, like I know something, I know, and I've been in this community for so long that there's various degrees of what's considered fat. There's super fat. There's, I forget exactly, I'd have to look it up, but there's like there's different variations of what's considered fat. And like most of the models in my book, I want to say are like a size 14 to like maybe 22, 24. And they're not truly what I would consider fat in that spectrum of fat,
Mm.
speaking to like the universal thing. So it's like I even decided to pull back from that name because I didn't think it was accurately represented of the books that are the models that are in the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I liked the name and I would love to do a book called Fat in the future where I actually feature models that kind of are in that size run. But I do think it's interesting to kind of just have a better idea of like where you fit in, you know what I mean? So I do like Universal's like size that they do. I don't really shop them too much, but just because I loved their brand when they first started, and I feel like the quality of their clothes has changed as
Mm.
so many different brands, but I also felt like when they first started, they had such like a unique perspective. And I feel like I still have like a couple pieces that I've had for like 8 years. And now I don't really I'm like not that interested in their styles, but I do think that's also like changing with the tides. I think, you know, is there's so few options now that they mostly just carry basics. So
Right. I got a bathing suit there because I was like, I have ordered so many bathing suits that did not fit. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe if I actually measure myself and order
Yeah.
from this brand, I will have better luck. And it fits and I wear it. So,
Yeah, I
Mhm.
have some
Yeah.
fitness pieces that I purchased semi recently from them. I haven't tried their swimsuit, although I did like one recently that like Lauren Chan was helping to produce, I think, or help
mm,
market it or something like that. And I did really like the like cut and fit of those. But it does feel like they've slightly, it's gone a little bit more like when they first started, they were a little edgier and like had more
yeah.
of a point of view. And I feel like it's kind of gone a little bit not matronly, but it does feel just watered down. It kind of feels like a bunch of other brands that I've seen, you know?
Yeah, I heard there's something with their fit is not like as good as it used to be or something. Like one of my clients like tried to buy a pair of pants there, and she's like in like a 3 or 4X, and like that they didn't account like a lot of people who are that size like have like an apron belly,
Yeah.
and it didn't like account the size the way that the pants fit didn't account for that, and so
Yeah, I am,
yeah.
that's interesting too, because I do know a couple models that actually are their fit models. So I wonder,
Mm,
they use some model, they've used models that are truly plus for their fit models, but I mean everyone's body shape is different. Obviously, when you gain weight, it fits different. The thing with like plus people is like our weight shifts depending on your body. So like a straight size person that is technically an apple shape is not going to look the same as a size 24 person that's an apple shape,
Mhm.
because your weight changes depending on your or your the where the fat sits on your body changes depending on your size. So like a apple shaped person is going to be completely different than say like I'm like a pear shape. And I do think that's like an interesting conversation. Actually, Peri Passu was a brand that kind of like nailed this, which I thought is kind of sad because they just closed. Uh,
oh,
Mm.
but they had a fit structure that was very dependent on your body shape. So
mm.
like I bought pants that were specifically designed for a pear-shaped body. And if you were an apple-shaped, you could buy pants that were specifically designed for an apple-shaped body.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so cool.
yeah, just because
Wow.
like when you gain weight, you gain differently, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think that's really ever talked about. So like as much as I want to say, oh, maybe it's universal, but it might just be that maybe she's a different body shape than they used for their fit models. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that could be it. I mean, yeah, it was like we had this like whole conversation about finding track pants in her size because she really wanted to have a pair of track pants, and there was like this whole
Yeah,
journey of finding. She found them. She found them.
yeah,
She didn't share from where, but it was like even something like that, and I think that that's something that I think a lot of size people don't really realize because I can just go to the Adidas
yeah,
website and get a pair, and even if they don't have my size, I can size up or whatever. And so it's like when
yeah,
smaller people complain about not finding their size, it's different
yeah.
because it's like, oh, well, if they don't have a small, I can just get a medium and wear oversized. Whereas if you are a size like 24 or 25,
I
that
can't just size up like natural. I mean, I can personally usually size up, but
mm,
someone that's larger than me is gonna like have a difficulty sizing up because the size doesn't exist, you know?
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely always interesting to me. I mean, there's definitely brands like Universal that do carry larger sizes, which is great, but there's really not. I mean, Torrid is like one of the only other ones that I would say that has a huge size run. Lane Bryant, but then I think of those brands and I think that like I will say Torrid's slightly shifting gears lately. I think I mentioned this when we first came on, but a lot of like the plus size customers that were buying clothing have now bought into GLP-1s and are losing weight. So their demographic, like towards main customer base, has gone because those people that were buying from them no longer wear plus sizes. So I
Mm.
feel like they're shifting gears and going slightly younger. And I do think a lot of brands are going to probably start doing that too with their marketing and like what they carry in general, probably trying to like pivot to a younger demographic that maybe can't afford it.
Mm,
I don't know. That's a whole
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic though, and I think a lot of people are really interested in that conversation. And so, thank you for sharing with us. And so, yeah, so I think we went over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
kept
I could
talking.
talk forever about
So,
this stuff.
but it's absolutely lovely having. I don't think I've ever really like I've met you before, but I don't think I've ever really had a conversation with you before.
Yeah, maybe just in passing, I feel like most likely. I
Yeah,
feel
I
Yeah.
think I might have like seen you at an event or like said hi or something,
yeah.
but it was such a treat
I
to
know
sit
I feel
down.
like events don't really happen anymore either. So it's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Is it the same in Brooklyn or New York?
I mean, there's like some, but I feel like the events that were really, I mean, I don't really, to be honest, I feel like it's interesting. When I stopped shooting bloggers, I kind of stopped getting invited to like brand events, which is fine by me because it's a lot of those times I'm just like, I don't even know why I'm here because I'm
Right.
a photographer, but I mean, here and there I'll get invites, but I don't go out as much as I used to when I was kind of shooting bloggers now, mostly just because I'm old and I also am just tired and I just want to like sit on my couch with my cats. So
Mhm.
I'm
I
the
think
same
part
way.
of it, yeah, I'm just like, I get invites and I'm just like, well, or I could just stay inside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also too, I get invited to brands where I'm like, you don't carry my size, so like, why am I even going?
Right.
Mm.
And that that's happened quite a few times in the past, and I think I just kept turning them down, and so they stopped emailing me, which is fine because it's like I'm not going to show up to a brand that doesn't carry above a size large.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Well,
well,
thank you so much. This was
Of
really awesome. Appreciate you taking the time.
course, thank you.